From the studios of the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, welcome to Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylveria Jacobs.
Welcome to PM Talks. This is episode 28. I'm Sylveria Jacobs, and I'm joined today by a very special guest in commemoration of domestic violence awareness. I have joining me today Vanessa.
Thank you for having me here.
I'd like you to introduce yourself and your current function.
Yes. So I am Vanessa Fraser. I am currently the director of Safe Haven Foundation. And I appreciate that you invited me here to talk about the activity that we will be hosting for Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Right. So let's start with that, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We were having a bit of a chit-chat before.
Yes.
And you mentioned that domestic violence awareness is actually in the month of October.
Correct.
So explain how come we're celebrating in November.
Well, on our island here on St. Martin, the month of October has been designated to commemorate breast cancer awareness.
Right.
So local activists and other stakeholders have decided to then commemorate domestic violence in the month of November, because that is also in line with UNICEF's 16 days of activism to commemorate the elimination of violence against women and girls.
Okay.
So that is the reason why Domestic Violence Month has been awareness activities are being held in November.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
great. As you know, I've joined together with the Minister of Justice,
Yes.
who has really gone out hard,
Yes.
to campaign against any type of violence. As a Justice Minister, she sees it, of course. We all see it as a former educator as well. I have some experience there. I've taken part in some of the events, and I'm 100% willing to support any awareness that can be brought to diminish violence here on the island, and as far as we can have a reach. So what exactly is this event that you'll be hosting?
Okay, to go back to what you were saying earlier, I know that in the many hats that you have worn throughout your career, you have always shown a passion and an interest in the plight against domestic violence.
Correct.
So I have also seen you on a stage advocating and bringing awareness, and it takes all of us as a community to bring that across.
Right.
So yes. This year, Safe Haven is hosting a panel discussion. The panel discussion is themed a conversation about domestic violence. So we have a group of panelists, all experts in their own fields, and they will be talking about how to gain financial independence, how to strengthen your mental health, the support that is offered by our law enforcement. So we have different domestic violence related topics that are relevant to anybody who is in a toxic relationship, anybody who wants to offer support to a friend or a family member. And you know what? If you are an individual perpetuating abuse and you know that you want help, you are going to tune in, because that is the first step.
Right,
Yeah?
acknowledging it.
Acknowledging it.
Yeah.
So really the panel discussion is for anybody and everybody, because this is a community problem. It's not an individual problem. I want to tell you a little bit more about the panelists, because I'm very excited about them. Yes, they are great minds, and they have a lot of knowledge to share. Let me start with the number one panelist, our Prime Minister, Sylveria Jacobs. Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
Then we have Mr. Emilio Calmera. He's a financial specialist. Why we have him on board is because what you often see is that a lot of our ladies who remain in an abusive relationship, it's because they don't have the financial resources to get out of it. And
Right.
especially now with COVID, with so much uncertainty, they are inclined to stay in a situation because at least they have a roof over their head.
Correct.
And they have a hot plate at the end of the day.
Food, right.
You know? He will be offering some practical advice and principles on how to maneuver with your budget in order to still give yourself the self-sufficiency.
Some kind of, yeah.
All right, and then one of the other panelists is Cassandra Richardson.
Oh.
Yeah, the former director of Safe Haven. She is very active in our community, bringing awareness, putting the word out there as a gender-based violence specialist, but she is also a mental health professional. So she has that double combination, which makes her a powerhouse, of course. And then we have Detective Patricia Richardson. She is representing KPSM. She is the officer or the detective in charge of the domestic violence portfolio.
Okay.
So she is our direct liaison also at Safe Haven. We work very closely together with her, and the panel would not be complete without her presence.
Great.
Then from the prosecutor's office, we have Sandra Whitfield. She will be shining some light on how to build your case. What you often hear is the disgruntlement and the frustration from people from, hey, I filed a report, I made a complaint, I was assaulted, my rights were taken away from me, they were violated. Why isn't this person prosecuted?
Right.
So you need to understand how to build your case.
Okay.
Then we have Ms. Suhendra Leon, who is an attorney at law, and she will be talking about family law mainly, what needs to be considered once you separate from your partner. What are your rights, your obligations? How do you deal with your minor children? What are the rights of their father? So it will be well-rounded, as you can hear, and all the topics that are relevant will be brought forward.
Okay.
Then, before I give you back the word, I want to talk about our fabulous moderators.
Wait, before we go there, we're
Yes.
going to run out of time in this segment.
Okay.
So we'll go back after the next segment when we get back in to talk about more facts and information to help you to tune in to this very informative panel discussion. When we come back, this is PM Talks.
Yes.
Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs.
Every day at the Civil Registry Department, we are confronted with at least one customer who did not pay attention to the expiration date of their passport, such as the Lockharts. To avoid this from happening to you and your family, we urge you to check the validity of your passport. If your passport is about to expire, please follow these simple steps to make an appointment. Visit appointments.stmartingov.org and follow the easy steps. All applicants must apply in person, last issued Dutch passport, 2 recent photos taken within 6 months. Minors must be present with legal guardians. Fee for adults, 210 guilders. Fee for minors, 150 guilders. Additional information can be requested. 4 weeks processing time. Your identity is your responsibility.
Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs.
Welcome to today's segment of PM Talks, Prime Minister Talks. Today I'm talking with Vanessa Frazier. She is the director of Safe Haven. Before we go into a little more of what is Safe Haven, we were busy talking in the first segment about the upcoming conversation about domestic violence, a panel discussion being hosted by Safe Haven, and we gotten a rundown as to the panelists, which I am one of.
Yes.
I have no expertise per se in this, but I have lots of experience as an educator, as a mentor for many young people in dealing with it, and I've been on several panels, let me say,
Yes.
and guest speaking on this topic, as I'm very, very passionate about it, having grown up in a home that I would consider was quite toxic if I look back at it now. So we like to talk about what is toxicity and Safe Haven and what we do at Safe Haven, but you were going to tell us a little bit about the fabulous moderator you have for the panel discussion.
We have 2 fabulous moderators, Christian Granum and Darren Hodge, also known as King Verse. They are both gentlemen that I have worked with in the past, doing an event for Women's Desk, and they are very outspoken, and they are advocates in their own right.
Right. And
So
we do need
we are
men
lucky to have
to
them.
stand for us as well.
Exactly, and that is the reason why from what I told you, you can hear the panel consists of both men and women, and our moderators are men. There is often that notion or that thinking that domestic violence is the problem of the woman,
Yeah.
and that women need to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
When that is not the case,
Not
of
at all,
course,
not
you
at
know, with how the panel is set up and how this event is set up, we want to ensure inclusivity.
Good.
We want everybody to know that they have a part and a role to play in it.
Great. I have, you mentioned something about Cassandra that, you know, I had to make a note of that. And you said she's a gender-based specialist.
That's correct.
And I think
Gender-based violence specialist.
gender-based violence, you see?
Yes.
You have to hear it more than once for it to go in. And I remember being in an event that she had hosted together with some other stakeholders on toxic behavior, etc. And that came up. Can you give us a better explanation as to what is gender-based violence and toxicity and how that
Okay.
relates?
The term gender-based violence is really a reflection of vulnerable groups that are being marginalized because of their sexual orientation. Yeah? So it's not, let me not say just, it's not only women that suffer abuse. It's also men. It's also persons from the LGBTQ community, and that is what that term covers. Anybody who is being discriminated, abused, oppressed because of their sexual orientation, because of their gender. The term has been, is more, coming more to the forefront now because, again, you want a support system for them. Yeah? You don't just want to create the impression that there is only advocacy for a certain group. Because here in St. Martin, the LGBT community is confronted with adversity, not to the extremities for, let's say, in other countries like the Islamic countries or maybe even in the Asian countries, but also in our community. Yes, there is this a negative staple, and the term GBV, that covers
gender-based
violence. Yes.
Okay. That clarifies. It was asked during one of our press briefings, and
Okay.
I think a lot of people either look at it as against females or anyway, male-female. But gender-based is just anything
that is
related
it.
to sexual orientation.
Yes,
Okay.
and that is it, because it's not the term gender-based violence, it's not against anybody. It's to ensure that everybody knows that there is help for them and that there is advocacy for them. And so yes.
But I think even in St. Martin, though, in your experience now at Safe Haven, are most of the, let's call them victims in this case, even though I don't like to classify them as such.
I don't like that word
Persons
either.
who experience violence. Is it more so women and girls on St. Martin that report? Because I can't say what happens because the silence plays a big role.
Yes.
Is it more so women and girls?
It is more so women. At Safe Haven, our mandate doesn't allow us to offer shelter to young women under the age of 18. So what happens? Women would reach out to us and we would accommodate them and their minor children. Yeah? So the part of girls, like I said, we can't offer shelter to young girls.
By themselves.
By themselves, yeah. We do have males who reach out to us. Unfortunately, our facilities don't offer the possibility to offer shelter to them. We do offer them support in the form of counseling and allow them to gain insight on how to navigate the system, and we coach them in that way as well.
Right.
But we can't offer them our shelter services.
Okay, well, there's a good reason for all to tune in to the panel discussion, which will be on November 28th.
November 28th,
at
yeah.
4 p.m. It's a virtual event.
It will be live streamed on our Facebook page, starting as of 4 o'clock. The panelists will be at Coffee Lounge, actually, and from there it will be live streamed onto our Facebook for everybody to tune in and receive the information.
What are some of the challenges that Safe Haven faces in dealing with domestic violence here in St. Martin?
What I'm seeing now, and that's why I appreciate the efforts coming from the stakeholders, is that there are different projects ongoing right now to strengthen those lines of communication, and also to make sure that those lines of communication become shorter, but that there is a clear protocol in place on how to approach domestic violence cases. You mentioned earlier that our Minister of Justice is very involved and very adamant at offering a better support system.
Right.
And that was something that was lacking, and the different stakeholders, the police they are sensitizing their troops. The prosecutor office is also very active in making sure that their role is clear and that their personnel can meet their responsibilities in that regard. They have their own internal programs going on, and then of course our government is also very active in ensuring that everything ties together. So that was one of the challenges, but we're overcoming that slowly but surely.
Okay, great. I hear you mention quite some stakeholders. So when we come back, we're going to take another short break.
Okay.
We have to ensure that we send out the messages of being safe during this COVID period
Yes.
and all that good stuff. But you're listening to and watching Prime Minister Talks. I'm here together with Vanessa Frazier of Safe Haven, and we are discussing domestic violence awareness. Tune in for the last segment.
Safety tips on how to use your mask. Wear your mask in public places. When removing your mask, properly take your mask off by grabbing the bottom ties of your mask, then the ties at the top, and remove the mask. When disposing the mask, discard the mask in the trash can and do not litter. Safety first. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth until washing your hands thoroughly for 20 seconds. These safety tips are brought to you by Collective Prevention Services and the Department of Communication.
Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Silveria Jacobs.
And you're tuned in to Prime Minister Talks. I'm Silveria Jacobs, and today I'm talking to Vanessa Frazier. It's not a topic that most people want to talk about. I know when I had my first foray and shared some of my story growing up in a toxic household, many people were shocked because we keep it so very silent. And for me, domestic violence awareness is about breaking the silence. There are all kinds of abuse. Educating yourself as to what those are is so important. And Safe Haven is one of the main stakeholders in giving shelter to women and their families. And Vanessa, you mentioned a few other stakeholders.
Yes.
And you said another time in your responses that, you know, it's a good way because of the communication getting smaller between some of the stakeholders. Who are some of the stakeholders in this struggle?
The stakeholders that Safe Haven works closely with are the ones that I mentioned already.
So the police,
and then, yes,
prosecutor.
our law enforcement, our police, the prosecutor. Then we work closely together with the Court of Guardianship as well, because oftentimes our ladies have children. So when they are admitted to the shelter, we need to evaluate the well-being of the children.
Okay.
And most of the time, it is that once they are in the shelter, of course, we keep them safe and protected. So there is no need for Court of Guardianship to jump in and take any action.
Right.
But we have that
The
communication
social
with
workers
them. Yes,
give that support.
exactly. And then we also work with the Mental Health Foundation. structural abuse changes the chemistry within your brain.
Oh, wow.
You know, it really it makes you lose your identity. So by the time that our women are admitted in the shelter, it's important for them to receive counseling, for them to find coping mechanisms, for them to overcome, and for them to build that mental strength so they can take care of themselves. It's an integral part of the process. Yeah.
I had a concern or a question because of that same silence. Are people on St. Martin, whether men or women, willing to speak to their partners and or family members about a situation of domestic violence?
It's a difficult conversation to have, and you said it a couple of times. I was talking to a friend of mine just this week, and I was a little bit absent in the conversation. And he was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, I'm thinking on a client of mine, and I'm not sure if she's okay. And his first comment was, "Why do women stay in those relationships? Why isn't anybody asking why people abuse other people?" And then that is the problem right there, because people who are suffering abuse, they know that they're being judged, that they're being criticized, that they're being looked down on, that they're being shamed, and that there is guilt being placed on them. So how do you speak up if you know that that is the reaction that you're going to get?
Right.
So it's difficult.
Yeah.
And for someone who is in a toxic relationship, there is nothing more important than having a support network in place so they can get out of it. It's not a matter of, those limited thoughts about, oh, she likes it. Yeah? That's why she is staying. There is a lot of fear, insecurity, and uncertainty, and what I mentioned before. When you are structurally abused, you lose sense of direction. Your ability to make healthy decisions is compromised. Nobody is above domestic violence, regardless of your background. And once we have that understanding for ourselves, we can be more compassionate, understanding, and helpful towards those suffering abuse.
Yes, I definitely think that's important. When we watched the Sean Prince's end exam project, where she depicted it in dance, in music, in poetry, in movement, in scenes around St. Martin, I mean,
Yes.
it evokes something in you.
Ooh,
If you
that
would
was
have to
such
be
a powerful
rock
piece.
not to have felt that, and a well brought up young lady,
Yes.
loved by her parents,
Yes.
has friends, outgoing, a dancer. I know professional women, women who are out of jobs, housewives, it doesn't matter, and men as well. So even people, the way they are in public, what's happening behind closed doors is not always known. And so for me, breaking the silence is important. That's why I
Certainly.
asked that question. Do they communicate easily? You mentioned having a network of support. So one of the things that came up in that video that I wanted to highlight was the way the person tried to separate her from family. I think that those are one of the first signs.
Yes.
So definitely, if you as a young person or as a female or anyone that is in a relationship and feeling that your partner is trying to block you from having relationships with your family or support system of friends, that's a clear indication
It's a red
of
flag.
someone that is, it's a very red flag.
Yeah, it is. And that is it.
Any words that you want to kind of wrap up and leave our audience with, because you must remind them about the panel discussion.
Yes.
But I'd like to give you a minute to really encourage the people of St. Martin on what Safe Haven's about, what you're about, and what you hope to achieve with this panel discussion.
So I invite everybody to tune in on November 28th via our Facebook page. It will be live streamed as of 4 o'clock. The panel will be offering a lot of information for anybody who is seeking to either help come out of a situation or to improve on themselves, I invite you to come out and not come out, but to tune in on Facebook. We at Safe Haven, we offer the best care possible to anybody who reaches out to us, whether it is internally or externally. However, we would much rather not be there, because we live in a world where women and children feel safe and protected, and they don't need that type of assistance. Once we work together as a collective with one mind to make this happen, we can bring about change in our community, and it starts with educating ourselves. So I guess that this whole month you have the opportunity, so make use of it. Educate yourself and get a better understanding of what is going on out there.
I want to thank you, Vanessa. For me, it's an honor for me to be part of this panel. I think I can consider myself a survivor of a toxic situation. Having grown up as a little child, seeing abuse in the home, I saw also the strength of a very tiny lady getting herself out of that, being uneducated but working hard, several jobs, and instilling a sense of pride and love of learning in her children. So not every negative situation is there to break you. It actually can help to build you up. So look at yourself in any situation that you may be in today and say, I can get out of this and I will come out of it stronger. Never give up, never be discouraged. Find someone to speak to. And if you can't find anyone, Safe Haven is there. As much as we would like to not have situations like that, it exists, and we will work towards eradicating violence against all persons, but especially against women and children. And I want you to stay tuned to all the activities that have been planned to commemorate Domestic Violence Awareness Month, this month, November. Stay safe, St. Martin. Thank you, Vanessa, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I look forward to our panel discussion on November 28th. Tune in for a conversation about domestic violence. I'm Silveria Jacobs. This has been Prime Minister Talks.